So guys, let's proceed with the class, with our special event of the day. Mauricio, why don't you go ahead and conduct the conversation?
Yes. All right. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you, Ivan, for being here with us today. Ivan is not only very experienced in the logistics market in the United States, but he's also from Belarus, so he has this view of logistics not only within the United States, but also in Europe and especially in the Eastern countries, which is it's a little bit different that we are used to. So I'm really happy to have him here today. And I worked with Ivan in 2019. He gave me the opportunity to work with him there. So I'm very thankful that that happened. And today he's here to share with us some of his experience as a freight provider, as a contractor on logistics. And so, Ivan, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit how you got into logistics.
Well, I've been doing this for the last probably 15 years. Got there by, well, I started probably more like with the freight forwarder. We used to ship cars back home in maybe about 15 years ago. So it was like a little different. It was like a sea freight type of deal, where we load cars in the States and ship them overseas, actually to the port that I told you about, to the port in Lithuania. I was like the guy who was getting stuff from the local auctions, car auctions, and ship them home. Well, we ship cars, bikes, boats, anything that has engine. We would ship back home, So we did that for a couple of years, and then the tariffs changed actually with, like with the custom duties, they went up significantly. So it was not really cost effective anymore. So my partner got into some dump trucking business, which like they work locally with the construction. They haul like soil or stuff for the roads to build or anything. You've seen the dump trucks, you know what I'm talking about. So it's like a separate thing, but they stay locally. And I went into the expediting business, which was, work with the cargo vans mostly, the one you've been working on, sprinter vans, and some smaller box trucks. And then I kind of worked there for about maybe 8 years. And I switched to bigger trucks, not the biggest one, but like 26-foot trucks that would haul some freight to expedite freight to. And then I switched a little a moving business with where we hauling furniture on the same kind of trucks, and I kind of staying in between those two right now.
And working with the expedite business, you get all different kinds of cargo, you get all different kinds of customers, all different kinds of urges that you need to meet.
Actually, hold freight we hold anything from the wheat legally, from like Oregon to, let's say, mid United States or whatever wheat was legal, to some rocket engines. Actually, we hold stuff for Mr. Musk, like from California to the space launching site in Texas. So we did everything. You've seen it by yourself. So it was.
Yes. Each load was a surprise, right?
Yeah, it was never the same stuff twice in a row. So, but we did get some repeat business, yeah.
Yeah, and since you've seen so many areas of logistics, international logistics as well. I mean, tell us what are, for example, now that what are the main challenges for freight business that what they are facing today in United States with the gas prices, with the rising of the freight costs and increase of competition. How do you see that business today in United States and Europe, if you can say something?
Well, trucking is a little on the hard side right now because it's, I think, economy, like trucking business reflects the economy state for the most part. So sometimes, you would see a lot of freight, like we've seen during the pandemic, believe it or not, because actually at the end of pandemic, because everything was idling for like about a year, and then everything was rushed into the States. And remember, we have like a long lines of ships lined up with a lot of stuff that needs to be hauled. So the freight was, the freight prices were great for like a year, and everybody got so excited and bought like a new equipment and everything else. And then it kind of went back to normal, and then it kind of dived even lower, and it kind of stayed low for the last maybe. Sometimes it's artificially made by the brokers, because let's say you're paying like on average, I would say, like for the big trucks, let's say average was like a couple bucks a mile. Then it went back, it went down to about $1.80 and $1.60, $1.50. And then even if we have more business, nobody wants to pay more than they used to pay. So everything stays like at the and $1.50 for the big trucks is probably like break even point. So you don't make any money. You just break even between the freight, the salary, and some other payments.
Right. So the way that they pay you in United States is by the mile, right? So, I
Yes.
mean, yes. So like you're saying on before around pandemic was $2 a mile. So if you have to drive 1,000 miles, you will get $2,000 for that freight, right? And with
Correct.
that money, you have to pay gas, you have to pay your food, you have to pay all your
Yeah.
costs, right? Okay.
Right.
So, and you mentioned that the pandemic, and as we were discussing a little bit earlier, how the pandemic affected the logistics all over the world. And once again, like the pandemic in United States, you lived through that. So how was the impact, other than just the harbors and the local contractors? How was the impact on pandemic on the logistics business?
It was, yeah, everybody got affected, but mostly like I think for the freight, for the expedite freight. And by that time I switched a little bit to the hauling like furniture I told you about, like moving people's stuff. It was, you remember, I don't know if you guys, it was different gradations for the businesses. Some businesses would have to stay closed, like restaurants, or I don't know, any public gathering places. But like transportation got like special niche or like area where they could not shut us down, because it's like we're too important to be restricted. And because still we have to deliver stuff for businesses and people. So it was kind of, it wasn't as bad as for the other businesses, but yes, it was a little bit less. It was a little bit less work, but it was probably by the end, like I said, by the end of pandemic, it was a lot of demand, and the prices were great. So it was kind of bad, good situation. So you never know.
Okay. Great. Well, good to know that. And I mean, for example, in your opinion, since you're in Belarus now and you know a lot of countries in Europe and how things work there, what are the main differences or characteristics between United States logistics domestically or in Europe, Eastern Europe countries? What are the main characteristics they share or differences?
Well, it's more like if you're talking about the States side, it's probably more, I don't say organized, but it's probably like it's more streamlined to the point where, like if you do your work, then you don't have to worry about getting paid. Well, there is like, I would say there is a lot of scammers, believe it or not, both in America and like especially in Eastern Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have to be careful.
Are we talking about? I mean, like you mean like the robbing the load,
Well, robbing is separate. Robbing
Mhm,
is big, like in Europe, like not robbing, but it's like probably stealing. Like
mhm,
if you would stop at the rest area for the night and you have a really good chance that somebody would break into your truck while you're taking a rest and steal some stuff. Maybe
mhm,
even the whole load. It depends on how valuable is your stuff is.
mhm,
Where like in the States, there is also things called double brokering, where some people would pose as the brokers, and they
mhm,
would they would book a load from the broker, and they resell it to you as the carrier,
mhm, mhm, mhm,
and then let's say they would not exist too long, but like they would do it for like a month.
mhm,
So they would take they would take the loads from different brokers. They would sell it to you. You would deliver the loads. They would get paid, but they would not pass the money to you. So
mhm,
you have to really be careful. But they try to do it like with the different people, so nobody really gets affected a whole lot, like in one place.
mhm.
They would spread the cost, but they still can pocket a good amount of money for the time being before they will get shut down.
Okay, so just for Laura and Bruna to understand, it's a little bit different than in Brazil. In Brazil, you have big trucking companies that they pretty much like manage the whole freight situation in Brazil. But in United States, you have people that own trucks, and their company works together with brokers, like we have in international freight, where you have some agency that collects all these freight. This freight from the customers like Ford, the big companies, and then they arrange these independent truckers to perform and take the load and deliver, right? So that's the situation.
Right.
Is in Europe the same thing?
I'm not too experienced in Europe part, but yes, I would say it's about the same. It's
Mhm.
a lot of big trucking companies, but there is a lot of small ones as well. So
Uh-huh.
it's not like 100% controlled by the big ones, because
Okay.
like the small guys also hold stuff.
Okay. And
But
go
it,
ahead.
but it's in Europe, like especially in Russia, you have to be careful, probably even more
Mhm.
about not, if you deliver the load, you might get scammed, or you might not get paid for the work that you've done.
Okay, I got a couple of questions just for, and then we can transfer to the students also to ask their questions. But I mean, the next topic that we're gonna cover in our class is e-commerce, and obviously e-commerce is very tied to a faster delivery, like expectations and all that. But I think, in my opinion, that culture, this new idea of faster deliveries also have shifted to the regular and general freight. In my view, I mean, do you see that? I mean, like that expectations of people that are willing to receive their loads faster and faster?
Well,
Lead
again,
times.
we don't deal like on the expedite part. We don't deal with the personal deliveries. You know, it's almost 100% business to business. So we don't deliver stuff to people. But like always, the brokers usually have probably not even one, but at least two brokers in line for each expedited loads. You have a big broker, then you have like a medium-sized broker, maybe even a small broker. So you have 2-3 people before the load gets to you, and everybody down the line from the big broker to the middle to the smaller the broker, the more expectations or more controls that they try to imply on you. You know, they can call you every hour asking where you at. They try to track you through the phone. I mean, it's a lot of stuff, and also quite a bit of penalty. You know, if you don't track your loads through the phone or through the app, sometimes they ask you to download the app. Sometimes they track you through the phone. A lot of stuff, and they really, everybody's trying to be on their best side, and they try to control the process and know like where you're at every moment, you know. So it's kind of sometimes it's tiresome, and sometimes I hated about this stuff when I was doing that, 100%.
Right.
So it's like,
so there are a lot of penalties related to that. Here in Brazil, it's pretty much just like, I'm sorry, maybe next time we'll get it right. But I mean, in the United States, I mean, you get penalties, you get fees, you get.
Yeah, sometimes the broker would just try to maximize their profit by doing that. Sometimes, like 9 of 10 times, everything, all the big talk and all the expectations that you would make it like the next day, and the load is very urgent. They're not true. Nobody even knows you coming, so people don't care. And sometimes sometimes it's really urgent, but it's like one of 10 loads. So like, yes, they have the right to be on your ass, and sometimes it's really not. They don't have to do it at all, but they still do.
Okay. Well, yes. So the last question I have for you, Ivan, is like, since you're in Belarus, you're very close to Ukraine and all the situation in that region. And talking about international business, I mean, can you give us some examples of how that situation has affected the logistics and the countries around that region in Ukraine?
Yes, it's a lot of stuff that was going through my country. My country is like in the middle of the trade routes, going from west to east and from east to west. So everything, most of the stuff that goes to Russia would have to go through the Belarus, and because mostly transit routes through Ukraine are closed because of the war. And a lot of stuff. Poland and the Baltic states, they not make it easy for the stuff to go through them. And I think the transit through the Poland to Belarus is closed completely, and there is some restrictions that Baltic states, I told you about, they recently stopped letting the cars to be brought into the Belarus from overseas.
Because
completely.
Belarus doesn't have a harbor, doesn't have a connection with the sea, right? So you're independent.
We don't have the seaports, so we're relying on either seaports of.
So they're raising tariffs and things like that.
Right, so we're kind of landlocked. But and a lot of stuff was coming through Belarus because we're technically not Russia, and we were like a buffer zone between some other countries and the Russia to make it legal for the stuff to be imported. But they kind of posing more and more restrictions on that, and it's makes it harder to transport stuff and goods.
I see. Well, tough times, man. So let's just now open the floor for Laura and Bruna. So they have prepared a few questions for you. So I'll just give them the word so they can share their questions now. Okay, go ahead, Laura.
Thank you, teacher. Ivan,
Yes.
here in Brazil, we used to say that truck drivers, they carry Brazil up their shoulders. For example, if they decide to stop their work, automatically Brazil will stop too. And it makes sense somehow. That's why truck drivers here are so respected. But unfortunately, here is not in all stopping points that truck drivers will find good rest facilities in good conditions. It's a problem. It's an issue in my point of view. And sometimes they are traveling with their family, children, wives. So could you tell us about the lifestyle of truck drivers, especially in USA or Europe?
Well, basically, like if you're talking about the big trucks, they usually, they sleep in there, they have their beds and everything, but they still would come to the truck stops. It's more like organized. It's great facilities in United States, and it's a lot of good stops in Europe too. It's not as good like infrastructure for them in Belarus or in Russia. It's like fewer stop, like resting points and stop locations, but they about being respected like as the trade, they're probably not as much as in other countries. But they, like, if the drivers like from Belarus, a lot of guys would go to work for the European companies, because the money they make in Europe, they probably gross maybe about $2,000 a month. It's like considered to be a big money in Belarus. Because like average salary here is about $500, and if you can make like 4 times as much, I mean you're the boss. But it's well, again, lifestyle kind of sucks. If you look at the Europe, probably the major obstacle is a lot of borders, and you have to go through a lot of customs and lines are so long. Sometimes we have to spend like a week to cross like one border, and it's like in every direction. Sometimes it takes even more time. So I mean they stuck like in those big lines that last maybe 10-15 kilometers. And you can forget about facilities and everything else. I mean, people kind of like in survival mode. They don't even have like a food stops, or I mean, they sometimes they call their family to bring some stuff over, because Yeah, it's kind of like survival of the fittest.
Yes,
That's the major.
I
Yeah.
Okay,
got it.
so Bruna, why don't you share with us some of your questions as well?
Yeah, sure. I would ask about the freight rising costs, and you were talking about the pandemic time. That was very clear. Thank you. So I would like you to tell us a little bit about the infrastructure related to the roads and highways. What do you think about it? What do you feel working on them? And if they are well developed, if they're always good to get your work done.
You're talking about which markets? You're talking about the United States or the Europe?
Yeah, both. I would like to know, to listen from you a little bit about both, comparing.
Well, like even if you talk about the United States, it's a big country, and it's kind of funny to see that, if you go more to the south, like if you don't have the winter in the area, there like roads and infrastructures would be much better condition, like you say about Texas, Florida. I mean, anything like any states going west. So if you don't have a winter coming like in the area, then the roads would be much better than if you compare them to like New York, Chicago. They'll be like sometimes really tough to go by. And sometimes, you have like a rich states and poor states. So like if the state has the money, you can tell that the roads would be much better than the ones that don't have as much money.
Okay.
But still on average, I mean, roads and road condition in the States are much probably better than the one in Eastern Europe. The Western Europe is probably, they have good roads, especially like if you go to Germany, France. Again, if the country is doing good, then the infrastructure is much better than the ones that don't have as much money.
Yeah,
a lot of stuff you have to be careful. If you're going up north, you have to be careful about bridges, because we like most of the trucks have to have like 13, 14 feet of clearance. And if the bridge is lower, and a lot of places they do have lower bridges, then a lot of guys, especially with the less experience, they would drag the truck really bad into the bridge, and it costs a lot of money to repair it, to repair the bridge, and the truck and the trailer is probably have to be salvaged, because if you like imagine going like 80, 100 kilometers an hour and you just hit the bridge on the top, your truck is gone.
Yeah, I see. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was used to live in Maryland a couple years ago.
Okay.
And I was used to drive there, and from there to Washington, D.C. So I could see the roads, the highway conditions a little bit, but I would like to hear from you, from your point of view, because you work daily.
And especially sometimes in up north, they have the roads called the parkways. You've seen them, especially like they have some in Virginia and Maryland, I think, parkways too. But especially like once you get to New York, the parkways not supposed to have any commercial traffic on them. So like if you get caught in that road driving commercial vehicles, I think I got one time 11 tickets from the cop.
Wow.
And I was driving like a small box truck. I mean, it could have been like, I didn't see any problem with that, but they did. So they can punish you really severe.
Yeah, I see. And you were saying about the winter time. I remember when it was winter and we get snow all schools are closed, all businesses were closed. It was impossible to get things done.
Yeah, they don't, especially like on southern states. Like I live in North Carolina, so like in Charlotte, if there is like a little bit of snow, it's like a national disaster, you know.
Yeah, it's funny because it's very different for us living in Brazil.
Yeah, sometimes we have like winter conditions even in states like Texas. Like they would have a couple of years they would have like a black ice, a thing called like when you have a small amount of water, it just really forms like a small sheet of ice. You cannot even see it. That's why it's called black ice. You can just see the black road.
Because
And
of the pavement is black, so
right. So like you cannot see that you have a problem, but you have a problem. And especially you probably seen like some stuff on internet. They have like racks of maybe 100 cars, trucks, everything like looks like a mess because you cannot control the truck on that or the car in that conditions. You like it's like driving on glass.
And I remember, Ivan, when I was working with you, I mean, sometimes you get a load from Florida and you have to go all the way to New York. So, you pick up the goods in Florida and it's like, 30 degrees Celsius. And then 2 days later, when you get to New York, it's like -5. So you have to be very careful because conditions like weather conditions, they change it depending on where you are, right?
Yeah, sometimes like in the winter time, some companies, they give you the load, but they would ask you to control the temperature of the cargo, and sometimes it's challenging because sometimes you have to protect it from freezing, sometimes you have to protect it from heat,
overheating.
Yeah, so you have to. I mean, if we have a special equipment, most of the stuff's supposed to go like in freezers, like it's what do you call it? Like it's like a thermoregulated special trailers.
Like the containers, right?
It's not a container; it's a trailer, But they have like a separate engine with a separate AC unit, or it can they can freeze your stuff like up to -20 degrees, so they can keep it like on the warm zone, and they actually have like a recorder of the temperature. It's like a disc with like a little needle where they can see if the temperature has changed during the transit time. And if it did, and if it did, then we have to pay if their goods are messed up.
Right. So very interesting. So Laura, going back to you, do you have any other questions to Ivan?
Yes, teacher. A simple question. Ivan, accordingly your expertise, could you tell us some of the most important points to pay attention in international transportation, please? Which problems are you facing daily or mostly?
Well, I haven't done international transportation in a while, but I'll tell you from my previous experience. So you probably have to be aware of the tariffs because they tend to change. You have to be aware of the change of the currency exchange too, because it can change as well. But being a transporter is kind of, if you not get involved with putting your own money into it, I mean, there is nothing really that would change for you. It's basically your customers putting up money for the goods that being transported, so they have to worry about if anything, it's a force majeure situation. You as a transporter cannot control all the stuff. So you basically have to make a right agreement with the customer that would shield you from if anything like that would change, that would dramatically influence. You know, sometimes, like I told Mauricio, a lot of my friends were in the car business and did what I did in the past. They shipping cars to Belarus, and then all of a sudden, the port that there was the most of the trade was going through, it's called Klaipeda, they stopped accepting cars from overseas that was en route to Belarus, and that's a lot of people would suffer big losses, but they really can't control that. Like you as a transporter, or maybe as the ship forwarder, cannot control those stuff. You cannot control politics or some tariffs. I mean, you have to probably make the contracts very wisely, not to be responsible for something like that if it would happen.
Basically, to make sure 1,000 times about the agreements, about every small detail.
Yeah, but you know, like most of the stuff I was dealing with with my friends or the good business partners that they're kind of aware of all this stuff, because that's the nature of international business. Things can change, you know.
Always.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. So Laura, would you, Bruna, do you have one last question? Because it's already like too late in Belarus, so we want to give a break to Ivan. So do you have one last question for him?
No, I'm fine. It's all
Okay.
clear, and yeah, thank you, Ivan, for all your time and attention.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yes. Thank you, Ivan. It was a pleasure, a big honor
Likewise.
that you participate with us tonight.
Okay, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ivan. That was really interesting. Great contribution. We're very thankful.
Thank you, guys. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Спасибо, брат.
Keep Mauricio straight. He's an evil.
Okay. We'll keep our eye on him.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank
Ivan,
you, Ivan.
Take care, guys.
once again, thank you very much.
I'll see you in Brazil.
Yes, good.
You owe me a visit. See you later.
Okay, guys.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All
Wow,
right.
that was great.
Wow. What a heavy accent he
Yes.
has. Wow.
Yes. And I had to understand him. I was driving and he was talking on the phone. And I had to
Oh
type
my
some
gosh.
Yes. It was very difficult. But one thing that was very interesting about him, because he has a lot of connections in the United States. So every time the truck broke, for example, I had a problem with the engine in the middle of Arizona, was like in the desert, and the truck stopped, and we had to reach California like in 5 hours. I had to deliver the load. And I just called him and said, hey, the truck is not working and I'm in the middle of the road. And he's like, just like he said, don't worry, Mauricio, don't worry. I'll send someone to help you out. And out of nowhere, these Russian guys, I think they were from like Lithuania or somewhere in Eastern European country. And the guys, they didn't speak English. They just said, the truck problem, right? Yes, good. Get away. We will fix it. Yes. And like in
Wow.
1 hour, I was driving back again, and and he was like 1,000 miles away from me. So it was a great experience, and he's a terrific guy. I'm glad you guys enjoy it.
Yeah,
Yes.
we did.
Teacher, I've noticed something. Foreigners, they are not like us, because Brazilian people, we are, how to say, we are very communicative, proactive, and they don't. They are they don't talk too much. They
Kind of
don't
cold,
smile too
right?
much.
Kind of
Yes,
cold,
cold,
yeah.
almost freezing. Yes.
Yes. I send
Yes.
pictures sometimes.
I must control myself sometimes.
Oh, sometimes I send pictures to Ivan like that I'm here with my family, and he replies me, "Why you're always smiling?"
Oh my God.
I'm like, because that's life, but this is one of the things that we've been
Tell
studying
him you're
now,
happy.
right? Yes, yes. When
I'm
I was
Brazilian,
working,
I'm happy.
when I was
Yes.
working with him, it wasn't that easy, right? Because he was always like kicking my butt, It's like, hey man, you have to wake up, you have to wake up, you have to go, you have to go. But I mean, I know him for 5 years now, and I worked with him in 2019, and from that from that on, we became really good friends, and I think this is one of characteristics of logistics because we work with people. We work a lot with people. And the good thing is that we've seen all different kinds of people, but we get good friends on working with logistics because we really have to depend on other people to do our job sometimes. And I think that's one of the good things about this field, right? Okay. All right. So we have work to do, girls. So let's now I'm going to share my screen here and let's go back to our topic today. Let me just put it here as presentation. All right. Can you see it, my screen already? Okay. All right. So, keywords from last class. Simon, can you read it to us?
Let's go. Customs authorities, governmental agencies, border security, customs clearance process, international and domestic laws, legal issues, dry port terminals, duties and taxes, tariffs and barriers, market demands, capacity constraints, infrastructure issues, labor shortages, economic fluctuations.
Thank you. I think we've covered pretty much all these topics with Ivan today, right? I mean, we talked pretty much with most of these things. So this is one of the good things about these keywords because they are there, and I mean it's very important for us to keep these terms in mind, right? So moving forward here, we shared with you in last class some information on international challenges, both in US and European Union. So we're just gonna go here very quickly regarding capacity constraints. We talked about with Ivan that today. Infrastructure issues, depending of each country you were talking about, right? It depends. Regulatory compliance, both, we talk about that as well. Technological integration, because that's today, even after the pandemic, I think that's one of the things that they got most improved in logistics, which is the integration of information. So these, and when we are discussing that with countries all over the world, the flow of information always being very sensitive and important. Also, environmental sustainability, which is an issue that, especially after the pandemic, and we're going to see also in the topic today, how important this conscious has affect logistics as well. Labor shortages, right? I mean, we've seen that because United States and Europe, they're very close market for allowing foreigners to work as truck drivers. So there are a lot of restraints if you want to work as a truck driver or some logistics professionals in these countries. And obviously, with the whole situation that we're facing today with the with the home office business, people were kind of like getting out of these businesses, these areas to do something else. So even though they have strict laws applied to truck drivers and logistics workers, as they still facing some labor shortages. Economic uncertainty, obviously we covered that and how that impacts. Can you see, I mean, did you see it? I mean, Belarus is not even involved in the war, but they are suffering just because they're not taking any sides openly. And all the other countries are imposing tariffs and barriers for them. So this is a good example. I mean, a good, but not in a situation that it's good for the people, but how these tariffs and duties and taxes, they can work more related to the political situation rather than the international commerce per se. And we also talked about the increased demand for fast delivery, right? And that puts us into the topic of today's class, which is e-commerce logistics, okay? And we're gonna see that e-commerce has evolved a lot after 2019, 2020, after the COVID, after the pandemic, for logic reasons, right? People could not get out of their houses. People start trusting websites and buying online much more than they used to. And then this e-commerce logistics has emerged as some kind of like savior for people to get their goods, get their food, get their products at home. And so I can guarantee you that e-commerce, as we know today, has a pandemic has affected a lot the e-commerce logistics. So e-commerce logistics, okay, that's we call even different than the regular logistics, because we will see that some characteristics of this this specific type, right? Which pretty much the name is easy, so it just pretty much refers to delivering goods that are purchased online. And obviously this includes a lot of activities, but the goal is to ensure that products ordered through e-commerce platforms reach customers accurately, another keywords for you today, efficiently, and in a timely manner, okay? And also related to that feel that when you're buying online, these e-commerce platforms, they are always trying to sell this idea that you can have like same day delivery, next day delivery, 15 minutes delivery, right? So it's a little bit different than the general logistics that we've seen, that we've covered so far. So obviously it involves a lot of technology and information to streamline operations. Ivan referred to this word, streamline operations and improve efficiency, right? And obviously things that we cover so far with tracking systems and real-time monitoring, routing, and fulfillment and all that stuff, okay? And by optimizing these logistics processes, e-commerce business can enhance, get better, improve their service quality and reduce operational costs and stay competitive in this market. And we will see some characteristics of that today, okay? So bringing also this topic into the material of this class today, the pandemic fundamentally transformed e-commerce logistics, highlighting the need of resilience and agility, okay, in supply chain management. Because before pandemic, we had a supply chain for e-commerce, right? And this supply chain was kind of getting mature and kind of like get stabilized. But then when pandemic came and all this need for e-commerce products create this unbalance in the logistics. For example, like Ivan told us that a lot of products got stuck into customs, into ports, and people could not travel. So the pandemic created this need for resilience to prove that the supply chain for e-commerce was strong enough to sustain, and it's been proving that it's evolving, right? And also I'd like to point out a very important item, which is the shift of customer behaviors, like we talked, right? So now we, for example, in most of the countries, developed countries, people usually they get about 20% of their purchases they get online, 20%, okay? And well, China is a whole different thing, okay? Because in China, it's 50% of everything they get through e-commerce. Obviously, very domestic e-commerce because they have strict laws, but this consumer behavior has shifted, and it's been pushing the supply chain to evolve. Also, because e-commerce, the strategy of e-commerce is to have faster deliveries and smaller orders, right? So before e-commerce, you usually will get your products in pallets and big trucks. And with e-commerce, the big difference is that you have smaller orders, right? And obviously you have the packaging, the transportation related to that. So sustainability and ecological issues have played very important role in the developing of e-commerce. And we will see further on some of the ways that the companies are using to kind of like get into that overview, right? So post-pandemic e-commerce has increased in complexity and innovation, and it aimed to meet higher customer expectations, as we said, ensuring business continuity in an evolving market. Okay, so this is another topic. And obviously, as we discussed, we cannot forget about e-logistics, okay? Because e-logistics, as the name says, is pretty much the integration and management of logistics operations through digital technology and the internet. Okay, I'm not saying that we're gonna carry products or take products through the internet, right? But information has become a major role because the faster, the better, and the most accurate information you have prior to the products arrive, the better you get prepared for that, right? So Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, big data, and obviously digitizing logistics processes using by software. Before it was a lot of things on paper, so now all this technology has evolved, and the whole supply chain has to be resilient for a fast-paced global market, right? You want to buy things from China, and you want them to get here like in 3 days, right? And why you want to get them? Why you want to get your products from China in 3 days? Because they deliver. So that creates this demand of, whoa, I can have it in 3 days. So how could that happen? So that's why we're going to look into details of the e-commerce logistics and how they differentiate from the general logistics, okay? It's more dynamic. So this is a big picture of the e-commerce, right? As most of people understand how it works, where you have your order that is placed here, and then you have your bank payment transactions, and then this order is sent to a warehouse that can be in United States, in China, And this is the big part of it. Today, here is only one picture, right? It's just a truck shipping, right? But then this is where the complexity works, okay? So, and then you get your customers in Brazil. So how can you get products that you ordered from China or United States in 2 days, 3 days, less than that, right? So the idea is to break down things, and we will see here some of characteristics of shipping orders internationally. So if your company wants to get into this business, you have a lot of options, and you don't. I'm not, and there is not one that is better than the other, but there is a fit for what you want to do or what your customer expectations are. So you can ship internationally directly to customers, right? So you're in the United States, they place an order, you put into FedEx, and then in 1 day it's there, right? But since these orders, these products are very small, they're small orders, you can get higher shipping costs per item, okay? Because if you're offering a pen in your website, you have to be willing to pay for the cost of shipping that pen for someone in Taiwan or in Japan, right? So there's a lot of strategy involved if you want to, if your company wants to be into this international e-commerce scenario, right? And also stretches your supply chain thin, okay? Because you don't have a lot of resources related to that you can control, and if something goes wrong, you're just pretty much out. You cannot do anything about it because your order is with FedEx, and something happens with FedEx, and then everything goes out of the plan, and you can have not only higher costs, but you can have excessive delivery times. But I'm not saying that this is wrong. I'm just saying that you have to be careful with that, because you can break your business very quickly if you just want to go online and think that you're going to sell this. The characteristics of the orders are going to be the same as the orders that you sell domestically. Okay. Another way of shipping, and then we're getting to the most modern models of e-commerce, is when you can send your products from one warehouse to another, a process which is called forward stocking location. Forward stocking location. You're placing the goods closer to your customers, right? And then you ask me, but teacher, how a company in United States can predict that a lot of people in Brazil are going to buy cell phones, for example? Well, that's the e-logistics part of it, right? Because since now everything is connected, all the data, all the information, the artificial intelligence can create a tendency, a future demand in these regions. So what these big business, and then we're talking about Amazon, and that's a whole different deal. Next class we'll get into that. But what they do is they export their products to a freight forwarder or a partner like a 3PL in these countries, and they can either just clear customs of the whole all that lot and pay up front those fees, and then you have your products ready for next day shipping to your customers. Or you can also talk to customs, and you can have the same way we have Incoterms. You can also have different ways of importing products. You can just use it. You can just clear customs the whole thing, or you can just keep that into, for example, a dry port that we covered last class, and you can leave your stock there, and you only pay the import taxes as you sell it, okay? So you have lesser costs involved. So you put your stock there in another country, closer to your customers, but you don't have to pay for import taxes until you sell those products. So this is how you can get a product from the United States to Brazil in 1 day. Okay, one of the options that you can have. Okay, so now we are kind of breaking down the supply chain of e-commerce, and then we cannot move forward without talking about distribution channels. Okay, because distribution channels refer to a network that involves all the participants of a supply chain engaged in the function like transportation, receiving, handling, warehousing, and all that. Okay, so you have a channel, and you might have more than one channel as well, depending on which countries are you exporting, depend on what e-commerce platform are you using. But the distribution channel is the network that you use it for global logistics. Okay, various channels are utilized to manage the movement, storage, and delivery of goods. An efficient distribution channel is a prerequisite for acquisition and retaining of customers, as it helps companies to deliver their goods to their customers at the right time in the right condition. Okay, so e-commerce is more related not only to what your customers are buying from you, but how efficient is your channel, your distribution channel to get there. Okay, so for example, if you're an e-commerce company and you put yourself in a position where you want to export to all the countries in the world, okay, probably if you're in the United States, your distribution channel to Canada or Mexico or Brazil or maybe Western countries in Europe are going to be much better than to, let's say, Asia or Australia. Okay, so this is one of the important aspect that businesses have to emphasize, they have to study the importance of their distribution channel. So it's better not to sell in that country if you don't have a good freight forwarder, if you don't have a good channel that can assure the delivery of these goods. Okay, so each of these channels plays a vital role in the overall e-commerce logistics ecosystem. Okay, so these channels are part of an ecosystem, helping businesses to manage the complexities of global trade and meet the diverse needs of their customers. For example, as Ivan was talking, okay, let's say that now Brazil just creates this tariff on, like the t-shirt tariff that we're talking from China now, everything under $50 are going to be charged. Okay, so let's say that Brazil creates this new tariff, and all of a sudden, if you don't have good distribution channel, you will get stuck because, for example, let's say a good distribution channel that imported already these products prior to this law, so they already have the products here, and then you can get more security, or you can create better ways to ensure that these products are delivered as you promise. Okay, all right, so distribution channels are, this is the overview, and obviously they have to start. Next class we will get into more details into the distribution channel, but today we will see how they start, how the strategy of a distribution channel starts. Because you have different For example, we've been studying in the last module, the in-house, we talk about warehousing, we talk about internal processes, we talk about order fulfillment, okay? But basically, we were talking about traditional distribution centers, okay? So they are primarily focused on the storage and the redistribution of products. These facilities receive bulk, large shipments from manufacturers and suppliers, and they store these goods and then distribute them to various retails, okay? So pay attention to that. Distribution centers, they move the products to retails. For example, Walmart, right? And Target and Sam's Club, okay? They are retailers. And the consumers, they go to these places or even they use their e-commerce websites. But the distribution centers are more tied to this classic strategy of distributing goods. It doesn't mean that it doesn't work for e-commerce. You can. But we also have fulfillment centers, okay? And this is a very classic characteristics for e-commerce because fulfillment centers, they are big storage areas, but they are optimized for handling a high volume of individual orders with a quick turnaround time, okay? Like very fast sorting, picking, packing, and shipping, focusing on accuracy, obviously, and speed to ensure customer satisfaction. So they often utilize advanced technology and automation that we've seen in other classes, like the pick by light and the conveyor belts and other solutions to streamline, to speed up shipping processes and meet these demands of these e-commerce customers. Okay, so like we discussed, the characteristics of a e-commerce order is that you have a lot of orders and most of it, they're very small. Okay, so in the distribution center, the guy gets the order picking form, and they have to walk around the whole distribution center to sort that big order. And in fulfillment centers, you have to be quick, you have to be fast, okay? So in a big picture, distribution centers act as large centralized hubs for storing goods and distributing them in bulk quantities to a variety of outlets or retailers as fulfillment centers. They are designed to handle individual orders directly for the end consumers and execute fast, efficient, and order processing and shipping. Okay, it doesn't mean that they are close to the very close to the consumers. It just means that the orders are separated, and right after that, you have your distribution channel to pretty much handle the delivery of that order. Okay, so this is a good example that there is no right or wrong. You have to study what is the strategy that you want to put in your business, where the products come, how they will get out of the warehouse and get to the customers. So, for example, you have two routes here, as we discussed. You have a supplier warehouse, and the supplier warehouse where the manufacturer, where they manage these big products, they send it to a distribution center. The retail orders make their order based on large quantities to fill up their inventory, and customers go to retail stores and buy them physically, or these retail stores have a e-commerce website where generally they're very close to them and they can do the last mile very fast, very quick. But on the other hand, we have the e-fulfillment centers, right? And then, for example, the order is already sorted here, okay? But since we have a larger area to cover to deliver these products, the order is sorted here, and then we will go to the regional collection center, the ground sort hub, and then when we talk about sorting, we're talking about sorting not products, but now we're sorting orders. Okay, so this is the main difference. We get out from sorting products to sorting orders. And then these orders are sent to delivery centers. And obviously, as they get closer to customers, the vehicles are getting smaller, right? Okay, so this is the big picture of a difference between a distribution center and a fulfillment center. Okay? So we're getting to the end of the class today, and we will pick it up from that on next Tuesday. So Simon, could you please read it to us the keywords from today's class?
Sure. E-commerce logistics, order fulfillment, e-logistics, digital technologies, leveraging, shipping costs, forward stocking location, distribution centers, fulfillment centers, turnaround time, centralized hubs, logistics channel, global e-commerce logistics, logistics ecosystem.
Thank you so much, Simon. So since today we had our special guest, we're not gonna have the dialogue in class dialogue, and we will go straight to homework. So this is just take a look at this information, okay? So while we were talking with Ivan, Simon was doing his homework as well, and he was preparing us some questions that we would like you to take home with you. And based on what you understood that he talked, based on what we discussed in the class, we would like you to answer these questions, okay? So first question is, what kind of vehicles has Ivan mostly been working with? Okay, the ones that he's been working with. Name a few kinds of cargo he has transported. He told about his history in logistics, how he worked in different businesses, what kind of cargo he has transported. What were some of the effects of the COVID pandemic in the logistics business that he talked specifically in his presentation? Here we have a little typo, and I'll work this later, but can you quote any of the differences or similarities between Ivan's work in the US and in Europe? Okay, can you point out some of the differences and similarities that he presented to us? Okay, and the final question is, what were some of the logistics difficulties he mentioned relative to the Ukraine war? Okay, so this is a little homework for you, and I think you will go through that very quickly and easy. All right.
Actually, we could give Bruna and Laura the option to answer these homework questions in written or by speaking, by recording them. Since the whole interview with Ivan was a conversation, we'll make it a part of the conversation that we record the answers and we hear you speak about those things.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, good.
Is that
No
okay?
problem.
All
Good.
right. Okay.
Easy.
So what we can
Excellent.
do, what we can do
Laura.
is, what you can do is you can answer these questions, and then you send the audio directly to my WhatsApp. Okay, so you don't
Okay.
have to put in the group. Okay?
Okay.
So find my WhatsApp number in the group and send me your audio with your answers before next class. Okay?
Okay, teacher.
All right.
Okay, great work, everybody.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for
Simon. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you so
Very
much.
nice, very
Thank
nice.
you.
Great class. This was wonderful.
All
Yes.
right. So have good rest, good weekend, and I'll
Thank
see
you,
you on
teacher.
Tuesday.
Yeah, see you.
Thank you.
Bye bye,
Bye.
Bruna.
Nice
Bye.
Have a
weekend.
good weekend.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.